Welcome to Excel Heaven. This tutorial is a further development on the previous Vlookup tutorials. In those tutorials, I used an invoice as an example to demonstrate the use of Vlookup to extract name and address details for a customer and produce details for sales items. Let's just refresh our memories before proceeding. By changing the account number, details of name and address update. To do this, I used range names to make the Vlookup function easier to read. That is, look up the customer number in the customer list range and offset by the appropriate number of columns to select the name and address details. I also use false in the range lookup to ensure an exact match. Similarly, the product description uses the product ID in column C to look up the product's range. Under Product, I use data validation to ensure that only valid products can be input to help reduce errors. Finally, another Vlookup to pick up the price. As there were volume discounts, we used a range lookup value of true to get an approximate match. This ensured that numbers not actually in the table would cause the lookup to fall back to a lower value in the table to pick up the appropriate price, and this worked fine. But did you notice I cheated? For the sake of the tutorial, I only included 3 products in the discount tables and arranged that only those products were selected in the invoice. The table array included in each row just happened to refer to the product in that row. Let's take a look at those ranges. It would be easier if I could just name each range the same as the product ID, but unfortunately Excel won't accept a number as the name of a range. Instead, I added a P underscore as a prefix to the product ID, thus giving the 3 ranges. On the invoice, I made sure that the table array used in the Vlookup matched the product in each particular row. If I used a material that isn't included, the description updates correctly, but the price is wrong. Ideally, what I should do is to pick up the product ID for use in the Vlookup. In this version of the invoice, I have included named ranges for all the products. On the invoice, for the moment, I have stripped out the if function, which checks for the value in the quantity column, so that I can concentrate on the Vlookup. You might think that by appending a reference to the product ID to the P underscore, it would do the trick, but unfortunately Excel doesn't recognize it as a named range. By the way, to ensure that the P underscore piece is treated as text, it has to be enclosed in double quotes, and append a reference to C18 using an ampersand. To get around the issue, there is a nice little function called Indirect, which helps solve the problem. This function is a little unusual in that it creates what is called a volatile reference, meaning that the range it refers to will change depending on the reference within the function. It's clever and I like it. Now I can enter any product and the correct price will be picked up. I can copy the if function back in, and copy the whole function down to the other rows. Let's test it. You can see that irrespective of the material used, the price for the quantity is being picked up correctly. In summary, in this tutorial, we looked at Vlookup and how the use of named ranges makes reading the function easier. The clever indirect function allowed us reference variable named ranges depending on an input elsewhere, which added a lot of flexibility to the Vlookup. I hope you found this useful and that it would help solve a problem for you. Thank you for watching, and subscribe to Excel Heaven for other tutorials.